Alright, in this video lesson we're going to be creating a painting study of a pair of lips, and the lips will be facing up a little bit. This is going to be done with a tinted chromatic black on a primed 140 a piece of a piece of primed 140-pound watercolor paper. And I've already done an initial sketch, but if you're not a fan of drawing your sketch freestyle, I am going to provide a couple of line drawings. One is extremely detailed, showing the shadows and everything, and the other one is just basic, and you can use the lineless grid system to transfer the sketch over to your paper. So this is what I've already got done. And for brushes, I've got, a big round brush. I've got a small round brush here, and I've got a tiny little filbert here. Use what you have, like when you see the technique. Now what I want to do is I want to set a ground on this. Now although I have put the sketch in here just to show you, because once I put the ground in, if I put the ground in first, the sketch wouldn't show up. And I've got my chromatic black here. So this chromatic black is already prepared and tinted using the Decor Traditions Burnt Sienna, Ultramarine Blue, and Permanent Alizarin Crimson. And when making up this mixture, I always start off with 2 parts of the Burnt Sienna, Ultramarine Blue, but then adjust the ratio. So in the end, it ends up being 1 part Burnt Sienna, 2 parts Ultramarine Blue, and roughly 3/4 parts of Permanent Alizarin Crimson. And then I have a big strip of titanium white here. To all this paint, I added a couple of drops of the extender because we have that heat wave going on. Dry bristle brush. Gonna get that brush loaded. And I'm going to take some white, go on the side here. And I want to create something that's just going to be a little bit darker than that. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. And I'm just going to do this. And it doesn't matter to me if I go over the graphite as long as I can still see it. Now this is just establishing a ground. And what I like to do is fade out the edges here. You don't even have to paint the whole thing. It's just, I just don't want any hard ridges. I can even take a little bit more white. Put that in there. Because we can always come in and add more. I just want to make sure I don't have hard edges. Hard edges meaning I don't want that. I want to fuzz that out. You see how I'm just... Now, if you have done any of my book of backgrounds, you can use those. There we go. So let's work with that. Okay, that's it for the brush. And you see that I didn't use a lot of paint. I didn't use a lot of water. I didn't use a lot of pressure. It was just more of a scrubbing. So I'm going to get the small brush now, and now we're only working with value. So I can even take this initial value that I have here, take a little bit more white, and let's just get that in there. Does that look familiar? So keeping in mind acrylics always dry darker. When we're painting this type of thing, you could always work it darker because then you can build up the highlights. So we want it to be a little bit darker than the background. So let's just get a base in there. And I'm just going to slightly overlap the background. You see I'm just fuzzing everything out. There aren't any hard edges taking place. And you can use whatever brushes you want. For this, I would suggest using better brushes. Try to avoid using, dollar store brushes, because you're just going to get frustrated. I'm applying a very thin layer of paint. You'll notice that I picked up a different mixture here. That's fine. And now I'm thinking the brush is a little bit small. So now for next time, I can go to a bigger brush, but that just means it'll be another brush I have to clean. It already looks like a pair of lips, doesn't it? Alrighty, so with this, we can turn around, we can work right away. We don't have to wait for this to dry. So I'm going to take a value, I'm going to darken that up a little bit. And now I'm going to come in where the graphite lines of the lips are. I'm just going to come in and roughly sketch that out. Avoid doing this with graphite again, because you don't want the shine of the graphite. So just something like that. And then this part here, let's just shade this. I'm going to have my light source being right down here. And I'm always tilting this because I have a terrible glare from the camera equipment. So I'm just going to shade this here, and I'm also going to shade down here. I can see where some of the, I didn't cover some of that area. That's fine, but look how rough I'm being, and this already looks like a pair of lips. So you don't have to go for perfection when it comes to stuff like this. If you take a look at all the old masters in that, nothing was of photographic quality, and because they were artists, you didn't need to, create stuff like that. So I took a lighter value, and I'm going to repeat the same thing. Just going to come up here, and now I'm getting a mix that's just a little bit darker than the background, but a little bit lighter than what I already have here. And I may need to adjust this a little bit, because this is where the light source is. So I just want to lighten this up a bit, but I want to avoid seeing that dark ridge. And following the line drawing, you can see where the actual lines are for that I'm working here. Okay. And I'm going to take a little bit more of a lighter value. I'm just going to pop that in there. Just going to do this so you can see how dark this is going to get once it dries. Alright, so and then we'll just bring a little bit of that value right down here. You can see a lot of it's scrubbing. And you know what? This brush is really soft for this. If I had to, well, I am going to end up doing this again using different techniques, but I think I'm going to go with a stiffer brush. This is really soft. So I'm just starting to build up some of the lights here. Let's just go down here. So I can't even scrub. But you know what? That's because you guys all have different brushes. So let me just show you how I could get around this. I am pressing a little bit more. Okay. Then I can come in slightly darker value. Let's test that. No, that's a bit too dark, or too dark, yeah. Let's come in here. Yeah, that's better. So I'm just working with something that's a little bit darker. That glare is absolutely terrible. I'm going to have to move those studio lights. So you see I'm just building that shadow there. Let's do it here. Oh, I am really liking this. Really liking this. So you can see how dark that got already, eh? So let's just go with, turn this around, and let's just go with the same dark value. Just going to bring that up a little bit more. Now what I'm doing is all my strokes are going vertical because the lips have those vertical lines in them, so that's what I'm going with. Take a little bit of a darker value right up here. I'm going to do the same thing. Turn it around. So you see I'm working fairly quickly, because if you work too slow, you're going to get caught up in the details. And the details are what's going to get you. And let's just put a little bit more here. So again, putting those lines in. So you see what I'm doing? Those lines. Now close up it looks absolutely terrible. When you go back, it looks a little bit nicer. And let's get a mid-range value going here. Doing this in real time, not speeding anything up. So I just want to go back to something a little bit darker than that background. And I'm just going to reshape this a little bit. You know, let me go to my filbert. That brush is just too darn soft for me. Let me go with that little filbert. Let's see what this can do for me. Ah, much better. Much better. There we go. Again, I'm working everything with those vertical lines. Nice, nice. And let's just get a little bit. Let's fix this blend here. So what what's happening now is even with the extender, the paint is drying too fast. So I'm not getting a lot of blendability here. So what you can do if this happens, and you got to be careful when doing this. You can take some extender, and I'm just going to get, oops, a fresh brush, and I can apply extender to the area that I'm going to, the area that I'm going to be working with. And I'm just going to paint the whole thing. But normally you would just do this for the area that you're working with. You want to make sure it's not too wet. It's already drying out. It's not taking long. And then come in. Where's my white? There we go. See how that's really smooth? The extender actually acts almost like oil paint. And we all know how beautiful oil painting is when working with portraits. So let's go back to that round brush. I wonder if that's going to make a difference now. Yeah, it does. So again, vertical strokes. Lightening up that value a little bit. Don't forget this, the actual light sources here. Make it a little bit lighter. You can always blot the brush and then just blend where the colors meet to soften that. Bring that up a little bit more. Isn't that beautiful? Oh my goodness. Let's just bring that up just a little bit more up here. Soften that right into the background. Soften that right in there. Now if you don't have extender, no worries. You can use water. Just be careful how much water you use. I'm going to blot the brush. And we're just going to pad. And what's happening is it's just fading right into what we've been painting. Again, vertical strokes. I'm going to bring that down this way because the light source is right here. Let me just tilt this a bit. There we go. Oops. Palette's already dry. Let's just put a little bit of a shadow there. There we go. So you can have an idea as to, where the values come into play. You're just looking at lights and darks when doing this. And don't forget to flip your paper. So wherever the brush is touching, that's where it's going to be a nice hard edge, like a more detailed edge. Where the brush, like if you're pointing this way, so the split in the lips, that's where it's going to be rougher. And as you work down, it's going to be a softer edge. So if I wanted this to be much harder, I'm going to work the chisel edge of my brush here and then fade it upwards to make it softer. So whatever the brush is touching, that's where you're going to have a much harder line. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So I just want to soften that up a little bit more. So I'm touching to where the lips meet and just brushing that up, then opposite going down, touching, and then brushing that down. So because the brush is touching where the lips meet, it's naturally going to be darker. And I can see that the paint is drying much lighter, so much darker, so I'm just going to bring a little bit more of a lighter value right in here. And I'm just going to touch a little bit in here. Okay, and let me work the background a little bit more. So I'm just going to refine that. Now I'm going to cut into the piece. The lips became just a little bit too big. So now we're working the negative space. We're reshaping the lips. And this is a technique that you will see the old masters do. I love watching Richard Smith do this. It's just the way that he cuts into the paintings is absolutely gorgeous, the way he does it. And what's funny is when I went to art school, they said you should never have to cut into a painting because you should have had the sketch done right in the first place. Well. So let's just soften this a little bit more. So I'm just bringing that over because the light's here. So this side here is very, very soft. Very soft. Let's just lighten this a little bit more. There we go. So where the lips are really, really full, that's where you're going to have the brightest area. That's where it's going to be bright. You know whose lips are absolutely stunning to paint? Angelina Jolie. Oh. Oh, oh, oh. Absolutely stunning. So now I'm just going to a little bit of that middle value right under here. It's all about the layers. All about layers, 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 layers. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And don't even try to get it right in the first pass because you shouldn't be doing it that way. Work with layers. I'm going to put a bit more medium in here. Work with layers. And if you've done this and you've added too much medium, then just take a mop brush and just tap, tap, tap. Okay. But see the nice difference by just working with a tinted chromatic black? It just adds a nice little, it's a nice little change instead of working just black and white. My eye is itchy. Oh. And all that's, I mean, you can do this a lot longer, but what I want to do now is basically just refine the middle of the lips, and we're going to call that painting study done. So I'm going to take the pure pigment, the pure mix, and I come in here and I'm just going to dry brush just dry brush over that. Okay. And that's going to be the darkest part. Right in there. So now from here, just going to there's not a lot of light reaching this area here, so I'm just going to darken that a little bit more. And if you find that your paint is lifting up, like what it's doing for me, because it's wet. I have to let it dry, just put a little bit of paint over there, let it dry, and then you can come back to it. And it's going to take a little, get a little bit more extender here. And it's going to darken this, and then we're going to be finished. So you can see that this is, although very, well, 20 minutes to do this study, but it's all about the values. Okay, it's all about the values and how, just by using the values in a way that you can create some beautiful form. Now what we'll do, let's finish this off by just hitting this with some light. So just going to take pure white right in the middle here. See down the lips look moist. Not too much. It's where it's the fullest. Like so. All right, that's it. So there's our painting study. So what to do with this is that I mean, this was pretty fast, but if you find something on Pixabay or, you know, Pexels or wherever, you know, magazines or whatever, just do as many studies as you can, practicing the techniques, because the only way you'll really improve is to practice, 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 and so on and so on and so on and so on. Try with different paint combinations, try with different brushes, try on different paper, try all these different things. And, you know, by experimenting with all these different things, you're going to find a method that you really, really like. And whatever method that you really like, it could be a combination of a bunch of different methods. Master that. And then once you master a technique that you really, really like, you're golden. There's really nothing else for you to worry about because you enjoy doing it, you're going to master it, and that's all there is to it. All right. So with this, with your study, let it dry and then date and sign it. And that way you have a record of your progression as you go through a bunch of other different studies.